Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. Today, we're going to be answering the question, should you open for Copycat, which involves not only reviewing Copycat and all of her synergies, but also the spotlight cards that come with the Copycat, both Thanos and Cull Obsidian. In addition, we've got a really great discard deck for you. I know you haven't seen discard in a while, or you probably haven't seen discard in a while, but we've got that. Before we get started, though, I'm going to ask you to hit that sub button. As of this recording, I am on my way back from the Bahamas. We do not miss days of videos on this channel. It has been well over a year, and there has been a video every single day covering Marvel Snap with at least 3 brand new decks every single weekday. We are known for our written up turn-by-turn guides. Don't miss out. Hit that sub button, ring that bell. Not only do you get a ton of content, but you really help us out. It helps us grow. We're trying to get as big as we can as a channel and offer as much to the community as we can. We try and use a lot of the money that we get for ads and such here on supporting different Marvel Snap tournaments and helping the game grow. So please do hit that sub button, hit that like, hit that comment. In addition, we also do the biggest giveaway in Marvel Snap all the frickin' time. We give away, on average, about 20 season passes every single season. We give away 10 in the first 2 weeks, and then there's 1 a week for the rest of the season. Now, in order to win this week's season pass, you have to sub to the channel, like, and comment on this video. 1 video this week's comments are going to be chosen, and a season pass winner will be picked from them. I'm not telling you which one. If you want to be entered and have as great a chance as possible, watch every video, like, sub, and leave the comment that's very specific to the video. You'll see where the comment is here in like 2 slides. Leave a comment answering the specific question that's going to be asked. We're going to begin with Chase Pitzer's S rank of cringe. This is classic discard plus Gwenpool, and the list is way, way better than I would have thought it was. This list, okay, so again, since I'm on the way back from the Bahamas, it's possible this list has gotten out there. I know Den of Marvel Snap Zone, the head Marvel Snap Zone writer, ended up tweeting about this list. We'll see if that ended up catching on. We'll also see if the OTA last Thursday changed anything about this list. But as of right frickin' now, this list is completely sick. The stats for this are through the roof. The natural predator that chased discard out of the meta was Red Guardian. Red Guardian has not been good against Arishem, and thus discard has returned. Gwenpool in particular is a great card here. If it hits a swarm and you're getting multiple 0/5s, you're just, the amount of power you're getting for cheap is stellar. Any extra power on Apocalypse ends up going up big, just getting 9 on Approximate, etc. You get the idea. There's a lot to like here about having Gwenpool in this particular deck, and if you don't end up using her, well, guess what? It's a discard deck. You still get value out of that. At least you get the extra 2 on Mobius. All right, you can find Chase Pitzer at twitter.com/ChasePitzer. He's one of the highest CL players in the game, has a million great splits, and comes up with a ton of really great lists that are often really great in Conquest. This, however, is a very specific list to ladder. I think it works fine in Conquest, but this one has been tearing up the ladder, both over 60% on the Infinite leaderboard and on the Marvel Snap Zone statistics. This is also a relatively cheap deck, assuming you buy the season pass, and if you are playing Marvel Snap, I urge you to consider the game a subscription model. You should buy the season pass every season. It gives you way more value than just that 1 extra card, and it's the best value in the game exponentially. Like, it's like 5 or 6 times the value of like the next best thing you can buy on a regular basis. All you need is 1 Series 4 card and 1 Series 5 card for this deck. If you have MODOK, who is again an old season pass card, so if you've been playing long enough, you've got it. It's also been in spotlights 3 or 4 times, and Proxima Midnight, who is in spotlights coming relatively soon, you can play this list. Meek can be Gambit, Collector, or Dock, and it doesn't really matter what Meek is. Meek is a nice card here. It's an extra scaler, but it doesn't do anything too incredibly busted here. It ends up being like a 1/5, a 1/6. That is a replaceable card for this list. So turn 1, you drop Meek if you have it. You'll drop Blade if you've got specifically Swarm or Wolverine there, but generally speaking, or Apocalypse, but generally speaking, I prefer to try and hold my Blade for later in the game. I'd rather drop Meek. Turn 2, Morbius is your priority. You can also drop Blade or Colleen if you've got Apocalypse, Proxima, Swarm, or Wolverine. Turn 3, Sif if Apocalypse, or you're back to a turn 2 play. Turn 4 is the big one. You really want a Gwenpool here, if at all possible, especially if you have things that you'll be discarding that put themselves onto the board, and the answers to that statement are Wolverine, Swarm, Proxima. Those are what you're really looking to hit. Any of those 3 mean that all of a sudden, Gwenpool is a great play. If not, you can feel free to drop Dracula. Turn 5, you really want a MODOK. There is no backup play here, really. You could add Corvus Glaive to the list as a backup MODOK, but I tend not to find that's worth it for this particular list. You want to play MODOK. MODOK is your goal. You can also, if you don't have swarms at this point, end up just playing Dracula and save MODOK for 6. The reason you're MODOKing 5 is so you have the free swarms for 6. Turn 6 is Apocalypse or Dracula and swarms. Whichever one. If you have Dracula, you drop Dracula, all the swarms empty your hand. Apocalypse gets discarded by Dracula, gets the extra 4 power on Dracula, and you win that way. If not, you just drop the Apocalypse, which is hopefully decent sized because of Blade, Sif, and MODOK. Then hopefully you also have a bunch of 5 power for 0 swarms that you're spreading around the board. And that's how you win with this list. It's really, really good. I also love the theming. If we just get one baby Proxima and a baby Gwenpool, we're all the way there for like the babies and hips version of this list. But this is a very strong list, a very cheap list, and one worth checking out. I strongly urge you to do so in the coming weeks. If you're interested in seeing that deck in action, or any of these others once the necessary cards come out, you should check out the stream team. Streaming for us are, this is releasing on Sunday, so we have King of Canada streaming at 12 Eastern, hopefully with these decks. Monday will be Gregor2424, and you can check FaThorNewman's YouTube, where he will have gameplay from the previous week's video. Our card for the week is Copycat. Copycat is a 3/5. She is a Series 5 card, 6,000 tokens. She is in Spotlight Caches. When you draw this, steal a text from the bottom card of your opponent's deck. Steal means this card gets that text, the opposing card doesn't. We'll talk more about that when we get to synergies, but the thing to know immediately is that on Marvel Snap Zone, I wrote an article where I get usually 60 plus. I say over 50, but it ends up being between 60 and 70 content creators and top players to rank the new season's cards, and Copycat was the runaway winner. Everyone expects this card to be great. That doesn't mean it'll be great. War Machine was a card, but everyone expects this to be really great. Now, the advice I always give is if you can avoid buying this before Friday, avoid buying this before Friday. Friday is when weekend missions come. It is the only thing you get as a benefit for buying the card early, being available for weekend missions. So that said, if you can afford to wait until Friday, wait until Friday. The only upside to buying this card before Friday, outside of like a little bit of FOMO, is the day after this card is in Spotlights, this Venomized version will be in the shop. So if you really must have this Venomized version of Copycat, you can open for it sooner. But if not, you should definitely, almost no matter what, wait till Friday. We're basically going to be examining for the rest of the video how likely it is you want to buy this despite that fact. Coming with Copycat, and some people decide what they buy a lot based on cosmetics, is this Copycat, which I like significantly better than both the base one, which at least shows like it's transforming, and significantly less the Venomized. And I don't love Venomized, I just really don't enjoy this Copycat. We've got a Cull Obsidian, which I was planning on opening for. However, they gave us a Max Greek, Greki? I don't know how to say that. Cull Obsidian a couple weeks ago for 700 gold, which I immediately snapped up because gold is less of a valuable resource than Spotlight Cache, and I don't love this one anyway, so I'm perfectly happy to have that. And then this Thanos, which is actually pretty damn sweet, and I've been debating back and forth between opening it because I've got a gold purple crackle Thanos background that I can stick on things, and I feel like that might look really good with this, so we'll see if I decide to use Spotlights. It is worth noting that I get every card. I am a content creator. I must in order to give the best advice possible. That does not mean I think you should do the same. That's what we're examining here. All right. First, let's talk about strategy. What is your general strategy when opening Spotlight Caches? Do you decide in advance and open immediately? Do you wait until Friday, or do you wait until Monday? How do you open Spotlight Caches? Are you waiting for anything in particular before you open, or are you just deciding? Are you opening more for just one new card you really want, or are you trying to wait for 2 older cards you want? What is your strategy? Explain in the comments to enter the Season Pass giveaway. So the first thing that's worth noting is it was said, it was data mined, that this would reveal what it copied to both players. It does not. It only reveals what it copies to the player who's playing Copycat, which is so much stronger. It's not always going to happen. It's in fact rarely going to happen, but fairly often, this is going to hit a card like an Iron Man. This is going to hit a card like a Silver Surfer, a Hela, a game-winning card for your particular matchup. When it does so, Copycat is a snap condition that will get you extra cubes because your opponent won't know why you snapped because they will not see Copycat and what Copycat copied. Therefore, you can sort of bully opponents gaining extra cubes. It also does not need to be played. I've seen that misread a lot. This is not an unreveal. This is, I believe, the first ever effect when drawn. When this is drawn, it does the thing. So that's going to happen a reasonable amount of time at the start of the game, not necessarily later in the game, which is also valuable, right? You'll know right from the start what you are doing, what you're getting. So a player whose name now escapes me, but I found this on the great Dara JN's YouTube, did the math for every card of Marvel Snap, and it found out that the math on every card of Marvel Snap with just Copycat is pretty damn good. It was like a 58% or so good hit rate. Which means Arishem, which is a potential for every card of Marvel Snap, is pretty decent. But in a regular, curated 12-card deck where people are just playing 12 good cards, this is even better. You know how we know a random card at the bottom of a deck is probably pretty good? Because the random cards in Arishem are often so damn good. It's the same concept here. This is going to be crazy strong, at least it seems. The most popular non-Arishem specific cards are, and I went on Untapped and pulled card data for the most popular non-Arishem cards. Some of these are in Arishem, but they're also in Loki, so I didn't know what to do. I included them, but it's worth noting that these are the cards as of the recording of this. Remember, there was an OTA after I recorded this and so on, so the data could have changed. But where we are right now, Shang-Chi, yes, I would take a 3/5 Shang-Chi. Mockingbird, not ideal, but if their Mockingbird can't get cheaper, if I can shuffle their deck, or if I've got just like an extra, I don't know, Widow's Bite on my side, a 2/5, yes, thank you. Gwenpool, great, 3/5 Gwenpool, through the roof power. Coulson, sure, that's just Coulson with one extra power. Loki, I might play it, I might not, but I'll take it. Rogue, 3/2 to up to 3/5, yes. Quinjet, could be useless, but reasonable. White Widow, hell yeah, phenomenal. 2/2 to 3/5, but you get the Widow's Kiss. Nocturne, that just basically got my own Nocturne. Dr. Octopus, not as good, but not terrible. And Jeff, awesome. So you can see that like 8 of these are great hits, and 2 of these are perfectly fine. That's just crazy. That's crazy. This card is great against regular decks. We'll see if Arishem can push it down. The meta decks right now are Arishem, which means that you have, honestly, about 11 really good hits, and then some randomized, like 50, almost 60% of good hit, and then Arishem itself is a pretty bad hit, so that's good. We've got Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer is full of good hits. It's full of 3s that, generally speaking, have less than 5 power. Pulling them up to 5 power is mostly good. Shaw is bad, but a 3/5 Brood is great. A 3/5 Absorb Man is great. A 3/5 Surfer is great. You get the idea. Thena decks love this. A Thena that starts out as a 3/5 is just awesome. A Angela, you're perfectly happy with. You don't really want to hit Kitty, but you're not going to like lose it. Darkhawk is okay. It's at least funny because you shuffle their deck if you... Well, okay, so you hit Darkhawk proper, you're thrilled, right? But if you hit Korg or Rockslide, you then shuffle their deck, making them more likely to draw the bullshit card. Sersi lists don't necessarily want to play this because they run a lot of things like... we'll need to see how this works with Mysterio. It could work really, really great with Mysterio. But Sersi itself is good, but you don't really want to hit a Sentry. You don't really want to hit necessarily a Debris, so on. So, Phoenix Force, probably not great hits overall. Not the terrible hits, but you're not thrilled about that. You're just saying, okay, if I can get one of your key pieces and you don't know it, I've got to snap. Destroy is very synergistically heavy like Phoenix, so same thing. Although, again, if you get a Death or a Null, you're ridiculously thrilled. Zoo is perfectly happy. If you get a random Blue Marvel, Khazar, etc., you're very happy. Even the 1-drops as a 3/5 are generally upgrades. And so this card seems really good against the meta. So it is important, though, to know that you are not stealing a card that they are likely to draw, with 2 exceptions. If you're playing mill, it's very easy to mill a regular deck down to its last card. If you can mill a regular deck down to its last card, this card is going to be great, but it is worth noting, like, and this is hugely important, that if you are trying to mill a regular deck and you play, you draw this, then you pull a 1-drop, then you play Zemo, you're likely to get that blank 1-drop, right? If you play Yondu, you're likely to get that blank card. So there is some upside and downside here. However, it does seem really good in basically every Darkhawk deck, where you draw this, and if you happen to play Korg or Rock Slide later, it's shuffling, and now they're much more likely to draw either a rock or another dead card in Darkhawk decks. If you like Darkhawk decks, I feel relatively secure in saying this is a must-buy. Now, we're going to look at a bunch of decks. Usually we have decks from top players, but again, doing this early. So the decks I'm going to share with you are fundamentally all just my own. So we're going to start with a Copycat deck that has Zune's, that is Zune's #1 deck. Zune's had the wonderful, incredibly powerful Cosmo in this, but Cosmo's a tech card in this list. So what can we do without a tech card? We can add Copycat because this is a Surfer card, and my thought process here is that A, Copycat works great with Korg and Rockslide, B, Copycat works great with Surfer, and as much as I'm losing with Cosmo the extra bit of protection, I do have that extra upside because now I'm at +2 power and have that extra like ability to get a Shang when I wouldn't have access to a Shang and so on. So I think Copycat is a reasonable shout here. It could also end up being Nocturne instead of Cosmo, and testing will bear that out. Next up, we have Woody's Zemo Surfer. Yeah, we're starting with Surfer decks here. Woody played this deck to #1 a couple seasons ago, and then it sort of disappeared, even though it never stopped being amazing. This one does a little bit of milling with its Surfer stuff. It's not trying to get to the bottom of the deck, but like if you get a Copycat with a Zemo and Gladiator, you've got a reasonable shot at getting through most of the deck. It's also just extra upside here, so I think this is a reasonable, if not the best home ever, a reasonable home for the card. A home that I think is more likely to be great is this Surfer. The Gwenpool Surfer should really, really like this. The hell? Oh, there it is. Brood and Absorbmen are in this list, so you have the ability to fill up board space without having to play extra cards, which means that Copycat is even better. Plus, you can give Copycat more power for when it hits cards like Iron Man or anything important that way. For this, you can hit like a Wong with Copycat, so on. All sorts of extremely powerful things to do with the card in this list, and you don't have to play it for those benefits. So I think that this list is probably a little better than that previous list, even though the other one is more likely to get them to draw that Copycat card. Next up, we have McDonaldino's Lock Copycat. JD McDonaldino has been playing this lockdown list to great effect. I think that this list is very, very happy to have Copycat as just an extra powerful card. You want like 15 different cards in that last spot, and Copycat gives you access to a lot of different options. That's fundamentally all it really is here. It's saying sometimes I'm Shang-Chi, sometimes I'm X, sometimes I'm Y. This is a very powerful deck that has a lot of extra use with Copycat. Owie has this mill list that was played a long time ago, French content creator Owie. This mill list hit #1 on the Infinite Leaderboard and chilled at the top of the Infinite Leaderboard for seasons. If Arishem's play rate calms down, this is going to be an extremely powerful, extremely meta list once more, and this list almost certainly wants Copycat, although again, you're going to have to be careful with that Zemo and Yondu. As the train passes, excuse me, you're going to have to be careful with that Zemo Yondu Copycat package. That could blow up in your face, or it could be totally a nothing burger. But either which way, this is another powerful place that Copycat goes. This is the list that when Copycat was data mined, I was most excited to try until Arishem came out and changed things up. Desmond's Loki Zemo. This is a mill deck that's also a Loki deck that says when I'm facing Arishem and thus cannot mill my opponent out, I just Loki and beat them with their own cards. Great. Copycat 100% goes in this list. I would not be shocked if this list ended up being meta and really, really strong and powerful. Next up, W's got this good cards list. Again, Copycat is here replacing Cosmo. Cosmo's great. Copycat, I think, is a similarly powerful card. If you don't have Elsa, you can keep Cosmo and replace Elsa Bloodstone in this list and just say, I'm going to play an extra powerful card. I'm going RNG, much like these lists for a little while ran Morph with Ravonna. I think Copycat is fundamentally largely going to be a better Morph in a lot of cases because you get to choose whether to play it or not. It's not, it's random, right? But you playing it isn't random, so you get to choose what you want to do. All right, good cards Ravonna with Copycat. This is our standard Ravonna list. And again, I just replaced Juggernaut in this list. Morph eventually left the list as the meta became more varied. But hey, Juggernaut is good here, but like not a requirement. There's a lot of decks that fill up every spot. Copycat gives you a chance for this to be a Killmonger, for this to be your own Cannonball, etc. It takes care of a bad matchup for the list, or at least gives you the potential to do so. So I think it's a better shout in the list than Juggernaut, which isn't made cheaper by Ravonna, so you're not losing that one way or the other. All right, does Copycat look good? So almost every card they release is good. I think the last bad card they released, obviously, is Hydra Bob. But even then, like, Phastos is not very good, but also not a bad card. And like, when's the last bad card they released before that? Black Swan. Most cards are good. It's very hard for me to imagine that Copycat is not good. And some people are going to say War Machine. War Machine is disappointing, but it's a fine card. The question for this card is very much going to be how much Arishem will we be seeing, and it's possible this card doesn't look great that week because of that. If everyone's playing Copycat, I would go and play an Arishem deck and counter that Copycat, although Copycat goes in Darkhawk lists, which also should be fine against those Arishem matchups. Once, next week, once I lost her name, once Cassandra Nova comes out, we will have a much better way to stop Arishem altogether, and then I think Copycat might be one of the best cards in the game. Almost everyone thinks this is going to be a top card, but we should still wait until Friday because, again, people can be wrong, including myself. There is no reason to assume that because we've theory crafted this into being a powerful card, it ends up being a powerful card in actuality. Please wait until Friday for weekend missions to make a decision to save some precious resources. But there could be things in the other spotlights that make you open sooner. Let's take a look at Thanos. Thanos is a 6/10, starts in your opening hand and shuffles 6 Infinity Stones into your deck. Thanos was a meta card from about 2 months after its release, straight up until about 3 months ago. And they killed Thanos, right? They changed what all the Infinity Stones done, they all pumped Thanos. It ended up being a fun meme deck instead of a really powerful deck. And then they released Arishem, and Arishem just completely crushes Thanos in terms of power level. So I don't think Thanos is worth playing. Straight up, I think Thanos is... look, Kang is a big bad, so it's not the worst big bad. But honestly, right now, I'd rather have Galactus in a deck, and I'd rather have I have Lucianary in a deck than Thanos. As sad as it is to say, the mighty Mad Titan has fallen. It's possible some buffs change this and make this a valuable card again, but as of right now, I don't think Thanos is worth playing. If you are going to play Thanos, I've got a few lists for you, in case you either are opening for Copycat and get Thanos, or just dying to play it. We're going to start with Crazy's Thanos back. This is the list that Crazy was doing pretty well with Thanos before Arishem came out. FAK Crazy is the top player, or one of the top players in Marvel Snap. As of recording, he's number 1 on the Infinite Leaderboard. He's been number 1 on the Infinite Leaderboard in back-to-back seasons prior. He's great. He thinks this is where you go with Thanos. Generally speaking, with Thanos, I trust him. So what you're doing at this list is fundamentally you're trying to get down either Phastos or Hope in order to ramp and take advantage of the power of Thanos. Arishem does this without having to do any extra work for Phastos or Hope. Next up, we have the ongoing Thanos. This list was really, really good for a while. It was everywhere for a little bit. Captain America, giving the stones +2 power is good. You end up playing about 2 cards a turn, so that's good for Thena. The stones trigger Mockingbird, etc. There's a lot to like here, again, but you're doing a ton of work with a ton of random variants for draw in order to succeed here, since Thanos starts in your opening deck. I think we could probably get rid of the starts in your opening hand text for Thanos and be fine, but that's where we are. And then we've got the FA Crazy Hella Thanos, which was, again, a number 1 deck for a little while, but has since fallen on severe hard times. Because let me just tell you, if you Corvus Glaive off 2 Infinity Stones and you return them at -2 power, you will be sad. So sad. Outside of that, this list is just drop big cards list, right? Similar in conception to the previous Thanos list. None of these are meta. They are fun decks, but not good right now. In fairness, that doesn't make me terribly sad as a long-term Marvel Snap player. Seeing Thanos as an absolute meta card for most of the last year, I'm fine with it being not so great for a little while. Excuse me. However, it means you probably shouldn't spend spotlights on it until they buff this card again. Next up, we have Cull Obsidian, 4/10, another Series 5 card. You can play this only where you have a 1-cost card. This card was in almost every Thanos deck for a while, but you may have noticed it is not in these. Mockingbird has fundamentally replaced it in almost every Thanos deck. This is a very good Thanos card and occasionally good Zoo card. It's a lot of stats, but it's a lot of stats that are fundamentally replaceable. There are other things you can do for 4 to get 10 now. You have Crossbones, who is buffed to be equivalent to Cull Obsidian. You also have Gwenpool, who's almost always at least a 4/10 in power on the board, so you don't actually need Cull Obsidian for most lists. There are lists he's still good in, notably the Dexter dump list that we covered last week here on the channel. This is very good. It does a great job of saying, well, I can use him on 4 if I don't have if I have a 1 out and I don't have Gwenpool, and now I've still got a bunch of stats on the board. You can also end up keeping it in hand, and if you don't see Infinite, chucking it with Dracula. Now you have basically an extra power, or you can just play the damn thing if you don't feel like taking any risk with Dracula. or you don't draw Dracula at the end of the game. If you can play Cull Obsidian with either Mockingbird or Sasquatch to end the game, you're pretty good here. If you would like, check out last week's video. Dexter's in the thumbnail, so you shouldn't have too much trouble finding it. Also, for those of you who constantly ask, I am making a deck database for all my videos so you can find decks on demand. Just wait for it. It's a project for when I get back. Next up, we have Gilgamesh. This is, in my opinion, the other best home right now for Cull Obsidian. He is really, really good if you don't see Khazar, or if you don't see Blue Marvel in a Gilgamesh deck. If you don't see one of those cards, you play Cull Obsidian on that turn, and you're perfectly fine. You're getting ahead, you're playing a lot of stats. Khazar is often about 410 in stats, right? Khazar with Squirrel Girl is a 4-7. Then you've got a Nico and an Ant-Man. Congrats, you're at 410, right? Or if you have Shauna, now you're at, again, a 4-7. You play two other, you get the idea here. So Cull Obsidian is similar in stats, except tall instead of wide, which is what we're doing here. I fully expect this style of deck to become significantly better next month when Marvel Boy comes out, which means I think Cull Obsidian might be worth owning at that point. Keep that in mind that Cull Obsidian is not worth owning now, but when Marvel Boy comes out, Marvel Boy is a 3-2 that gives +1 power to 3 1-cost cards at the end of the turn, at the end of each turn. So he's a ton of power. I can see that being really great with Cull. You play Squirrel Girl, you play Ant-Man, and then you play that, and then you play Cull Obsidian, and you've just got an absolute insane amount of power. Finally, we've got Gnome Sasquatch list. This is fundamentally a Big Dumb Idiots style of list that's also running a little bit of a destroy package. It's saying, I'm going to spend my early game breaking stuff so that I can play as many big things as possible. You don't have to break anything for Cull. You've just got Hood, Nico, and Squirrel Girl to play a Cull Obsidian. At that point, you can hopefully get a cheap Mockingbird and cheap Sasquatch out of it, and then if you can destroy that stuff with Carnage and Killmonger, you get a cheap death. I had a lot of fun with this deck when it first came out, and I should probably try it again, but it's been a while since I've taken a look at it. This might just put out enough power to give those Arishem decks a really good run for their money. So should you open this week? So Thanos was the meta for a really long time, but he's both bad and badly outshined by Arishem. Cull, however, is a fine card, but just that. Because Cull is so replaceable by Crossbones, it's hard for me to suggest you spend tokens on him. Even in the, I run a bunch of 1-cost decks, you're usually ahead in 1 lane because you're dropping so many cheap things, right? That I don't think Cull is an absolute necessity in any of these. It comes down to how good Copycat is going to be, so you should wait. My personal perspective is that Copycat will be great. Since I will be home this week, in Thursday's video right here on this channel, there will be a Copycat section where I will ask a bunch of top players. We're talking players like Lambie, players like YoDMJ, players like W, some top players in Marvel Snap. I will ask them what their immediate impression is on Copycat. On Friday, in Friday's video, I will synthesize that information, look at the stats on Copycat, and give you an opinion on whether you should buy it for weekend missions. And on Monday, in the video, I will have a last chance review. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. Generally speaking, again, I urge you to wait until Friday for this card. Questions of the day, and then we are done here. So let us get to our questions of the day. We're going to start with Mandatory Burnett, who asks about the Claremont Davis Excalibur run and how awesome Rachel Summers is in it. So the Claremont Davis Excalibur run is a little bit inconsistent, but largely fantastic. I'm not going to remember the name of this. I literally looked it up so I could remember it, and then I forgot. But I believe it's the Soul Sword Saga. I don't remember the actual word for it. Otherworld Saga, something like that. Was not very good. Almost everything else that was happening in that run, I really enjoyed. I prefer when my mutants deal with mutant stuff. I really like the Central Metaphor. I don't mind the occasional sharp left from there, but I prefer when we focus there. Alan Davis's art is so freaking good that I don't know if I super care. There is, I believe, an Alan Davis card. No, there's not. I'm making that up. I wish there was an Alan Davis card in the game. I will get one when there is. Chris Claremont's X-Men remains the best X-Men ever, even if I personally like the Grant Morrison and Hickman errors just as much. They only work because Claremont laid so much groundwork. Corey asked what variant of Dungeons & Dragons I played. There was a day where we talked a ton about Dungeons & Dragons a couple of weeks ago. So the variant of Dungeons & Dragons that I personally played was 4th edition. It just happens to be the edition that was popular when I was playing. I'm playing 5th edition now through Baldur's Gate not Dark Alliance, excuse me. I did play Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance too, but I'm playing it through Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm just going to say I like 5th edition a fair amount better. I really, really did like tactical battles in 4th edition because I love tactics video games. Kier Nimbus asks what card I'd like to see for an archetype I like. And the obvious answer is bounce. And please note, we talked about Rachel Summers. I know exactly what I want Rachel Summers to do. I want Rachel Summers to be about a 3/4 that when played bounces the lowest cost card at each player's location and gives it -1 cost. It's Rachel taking baby Nathan to the future. Get it? She's bouncing an opponent card also, but and giving it -1 cost so you can play it. So you can play it at the end of the game to try and like win a location a la Juggernaut, or you can play it early in the game and give yourself a discount, but like take away an opponent's benefit from a card that they've got in a certain location. Play it with a card like White Widow, right? And then I guess if they'd have the 0 cost thing there. So probably not White Widow, but you can play it with a lot of other powerful cards. You can play it with the Black Widow. You can play it with any of your like hood-ish cards, your Bast, so on. I think that would be an amazing card and amazingly powerful. And I want it very badly, and I think Rachel Summers is the perfect card for it. She's bouncing your card, Cable, and your opponent's card, Strife. But they're babies, so they're one to the lowest cost. Get it? So did support on our Patreon come with on-air things. I'd like to say thank you to Abigail Kiesland, Mandatory Burnout, Cables, Irregardless, David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, LAB, FaThorNewman, Good Dog Gamer, This Is the Way, Inc., I Am Frostman, Jay Neverite, Doomer, Prime Dryan, Hertixley, Koi Ray, Pyrofros, The Goat Seeker, Denman Falcon, Quid Pro Joe, forgot how to speak, Docty, who has great new Marvel Snap card content. You can also check out his videos similar to this over on his channel, Fat Nick, Ginger Prime, Philip Brakovich, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Bizza, X-Verse V and Skippy G, Simon Nyquist, winner of Season 1 of Snap Judgments League, The King of Bros, Black Dahlia, The Great Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, Ryan Woody, Kev C. Hoda, Luna Chris, Archangel 3K, John Q, Lou Antunes, Mod Supreme Models, Darth Tater, Remus Atala, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B., JD Mack, Donald Ian Ho, who finally streamed again, woo! The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrumix, woo! Matt H., DJ Mikey Hijinks, NoFlex, Ocularis, Greg Sterry, Seamus, Jonesy, Two Ties, the Great Lauren Debs, the Pirate King Tuccrr, the Homie Min, and of course, Gunny T. We'll see you tomorrow for another, actually, extra special Snap Take. Peace.